My name is Greg Coles. I am CEO and owner of C-Lock LLC. I'm also president of Exceeder Retrofits, where we are announcing our new Proteus parallel hybrid design. This is one of my earlier builds here. This is a 1972 Mercedes 280 SE. SE stood for standard edition. We're going to make it standard electric. So I'll go over some of the features with this car. All right, so what we did was we removed the standard dashboard that came with the old car, and we replaced it with a digital dashboard. As you can see, it's got a full digital readout. It lets you know how efficient you're riding. It lets you know your range, of course, speedometer, things of that nature, direction, temperature outside, all that good stuff. We've got, I borrowed this steering wheel and this gear shift from a Leaf. I borrowed part of the center console from a Leaf. And what it is, it's an integrated Leaf and other aftermarket parts component vehicle. So it's sort of Frankenstein together, but what we did was we wanted to make it look really authentic and also unique. So if you look at the doors, they're full on Mercedes, like from the 70s, right? The style that used to be window cranking. So we removed that and covered it with a little silver dowel. And then all Mercedes have their window switches in the center console. So I moved I installed a center console switch down there. It's got heated seats, even in the rear, it's got heated seats. Yeah, this is just it's a hoot to drive. It's got ABS, power steering, brakes, AC heat, all of the, it's got airbags. It's got all the normal features of a new electric vehicle. This is just hopefully one that looks a little bit classier. Yeah. So this, like I said, this is all custom done, all the way down to the anchors of the seat belts. Everything had to be custom. These anchors had to be, of course, welded to the chassis of the car, to the unibody chassis of the car, and all of this is a labor of love. It took quite a bit of time to put this together and to make it what it is, but we wanted to have something very unique that no one else had, but that also performed as well as it looks, and that's what we were able to achieve out of this. It's got limited range, very limited range, about 100 miles, and the reason that it's so limited is I have a very small battery pack which sits under the back seat. I do a lot of traveling. I take these cars, I show it around a lot, and because of that, I don't want it to weigh a lot. But underneath the rear of the car, where the old trunk used to be, there's open space. And I said, once I make this something that I drive a lot, or if I were to sell it to a customer, then I would extend the range. It could get up to about a 240, 250 mile range, depending on how fast you drive. So it is fully upgradable, but right now, it's more of a show car, but hopefully it doesn't disappoint. So charging is right here behind the steering wheel, behind the license plate. So there's CHAdeMO charging, and then there's regular J1772 charging. CHAdeMO is it's a dying technology. This can only do it at the most 50 kilowatts an hour of charging. Now they're up to CCS, which is 150 kilowatts. I'm thinking about changing this out to a CCS charger, CCS stands for Combined Charging System. It's where these two are actually integrated together, and you put one big plug in, and it lets you know, you choose how you want to charge, whether it's high speed or DC fast or regular charging. It's got a rear view camera with it, all LED lighting. Unlike other EV conversions, you have full use of a trunk. As you see, I have all of my junk in here, including a spare tire and a tire cover, my charging wand. But yeah, full on. That's the car covers in case it rains. But yeah, so this car is just as functional as if it were a regular standard car you buy from the manufacturer. There are budget builds that can be as cheap as 25 grand. And then you have ones like this. This is a full-on resto mod, restoration/slash modification. This right here is probably somewhere around 100,000, because there is a lot of work that has to be put into restoring this and also making it comfortable to where you have your creature comforts, your safety features, your handling, and also just so it can be upgradable, because this is an upgradable car. Even though the components are integrated, it's still, we designed it so it can be upgraded. Yeah, all batteries have a what I call a shelf life, and if you don't DC fast any electric car. DC fasting electric cars increases what you call dendrites within the batteries, okay? And those dendrites eventually short out the battery, reduce the life up, or kill the battery. Until then, those dendrites that grow in the battery reduce the capacity of the battery, all right? Picture like a cave with a stalactite or a stalagmite. These grow within the battery every time you DC fast charge. You extend those dendrites exponentially. So you could reduce the life of an EV battery from 20 years down to say 7 or 8 by DC fast charging every day.
So it's better to slow charge.
Always better to slow charge. Slow and steady wins the race, right? So if you go home at night and you take your car and you just plug it right up to level 1 or level 2 charging, expect your battery to last the life of the car itself. You know, if you want to keep your car 15, 20 years and you don't DC fast charge every day, well then your battery will last as long as the car does. Now, in some cases, you know, you have what people call superchargers or DC fast chargers. They're naming them destination chargers because they're intended to get you to your destination, not everyday charge. If you do everyday charge, you will reduce the life of your battery severely. So that's something it's education that should be, a type of education that should be announced throughout the consumer world, because, you know, it's just like if you use cheap gas, you know, and then expect for your car to knock and expect to not get as good as gas mileage, okay? You compare that to DC fast charging with reducing your battery life, like cheap gas can reduce your engine life. And this is something, like I said, it should be education that should be announced within the consumer world when they're looking for cars or when they're owning EVs. So.
And then the batteries that are too old to use anymore in the cars, I've heard that you might be able to use it for a house to store any power that your solar panels.
Yeah, exactly. So it started off in, I want to say it was Wales or Ireland. They had an EV recycle program, and this EV recycle program, or EV battery recycle program, takes batteries and it gives them a second life. So when the battery gets down to about 70% capacity, 70%, let's say this had a 100-mile range in 7-8 years, right? Say it went down to 70%. Well, then you could put a new battery pack in here, and that old battery pack could then be used for, say, your house, a home solar program where you can have an off-grid solar program where you can use it as battery storage. You can run your house by a solar and battery or solar by day, and of course that same solar power charges your battery system, and then you can run off of your battery system by night. Because home applications do not spike in what you call amperage requests. These batteries can just live a long and steady, peaceful life where they're not taxed as heavy as they are in an EV application. Hence the reason that supercharging causes those dendrites that has a noticeable difference in your battery performance. Because when you request all of the amperage, then that essentially those dendrites that have grown, that takes all the capacity up in your battery, it gets in the way and then it sucks up the life, and you notice it immediately. Versus in a home application, those dendrites really don't mean anything because it's just a steady draw night, a steady charge by day. And so therefore, that is the second life of an EV battery once it's removed from the car. That mitigates the whole getting rid, landfills and even recycling. I remember the movie back in the day, Talladega Nights, and Will Ferrell was doing an interview, and he was like, "I don't know what to do with my hands." He just kept raising them. He was like, "I don't know my hands. What do I do with them?" No, just put them down by your side. You can do battery testing, capacitance testing. You have the battery specs of what it should be, and you test it for what it is. So, and the BMS system, the battery management system from the car, that'll tell you right off the bat. You'll find out what the capacity, the total capacity. Say you have a 100 kilowatt system, right? And you do a capacitance test to see how many watts that it actually possesses after you charge, and they'll let you know if it's actually dying out or not. So, yeah, it's sort of a basic mathematics, battery mathematics. Yeah, they're formulas.
Yeah, I'm not a math person.
Well, luckily there are engineers that have figured that out, and they have, you know, your BMS on your onboard BMS, your battery management system, translates us to range. So your BMS will let us know, well, according to your car's weight and balance, what it's calculated at, well, if your car's supposed to get this much range off of 100 mile, or off 100% charge, it only gets this much. Well, say it gets 80 out of 100%, I mean, out of, you know, out of 100% charge, and it's supposed to get 100 mile. Well, now your battery's 80% capacity. It's at 80%.
Start thinking about it.
And you start thinking, yeah. Nissan Leaf had a buyback program where they would, you know, buy your old batteries and swap them, you know, swap out your traction pack. You know, you just had to match it with your VIN number. You know, they saw it, they said, oh, okay, well, yours is this year, it falls within the spec. Yeah, we'll replace your pack for so much. And it's basically like buying another car, you know. And it's good.
Did you work on the other car over there too?
Mm-hmm, sure did, yeah.
What's the story behind that one?
This is a build that was brought to me. It was already built when I got it, and then I rebuilt it. So it needed upgrades. So what I did was I upgraded the motor controller, put another motor in it, and then I designed another motor to put in it, which I haven't installed yet. So it's got one motor in here that's an upgrade that I've done, and it's good. It's okay, it's a grocery getter. You're not gonna win any races, but it is fun to drive. The difference with this car versus other cars is this car is actually a 4-speed manual. Now, you don't have to drive it like a standard 4-speed manual, because when you come to a stop in an electric car, the motor stops. So you don't have to push the clutch in at a light. You just come to a stop. But what's neat about this car is if you drive this car the right way, and I've done it, you can actually leave or come back with more range than you left with. Here's how. So when you start off in, say, third gear, and you coast up to 40, or you drive gradually to 45 miles an hour, when it comes time to slow down, you actually downshift to third or second. It spins the motor super fast, creates a very heavy wave of regen field, and it shoots a lot of power back in the batteries. Versus in a regular electric car, where it's a single speed gear reducer, as you release your foot off the brake, then, or off the throttle, it turns the motor into a generator and slows you down however it is programmed to do. With this one, I can actually change or vary, make the amount of regeneration variable by choosing the gear that I want so that it can regen easier. Also, there are things like floating the clutch, you know, floating your clutch when you're going up and down hills. And you can make this thing a hoot to drive. It's a challenge to make this actually come back with more range than you left after driving about 25 miles. So it is possible. And of course, it's very aerodynamic. This car only came with 62 original horsepower in its original ICE form. So it doesn't take much to move this car. And with the top down, the way the windshield is swooped, the aerodynamics of the car, it's actually designed comparative to a modern day EV. So this thing is a hoot to drive, and like I said, the challenge with driving it in this manual is that you can actually make this more efficient than a standard electric vehicle. So you've got a little more freedom to do with this, to drive this car.
Beautiful car.
Thank you.